My mom banned me from Christmas for embarrassing the family. 5 days later, the family collapsed without me. The text came on a cold Tuesday morning, 4 days before Christmas. I woke up to the ping of my phone and reached for it, still half asleep, expecting a recipe from my sister or a weather update from Dad. Instead, I saw her name, Mom, and the kind of message that doesn't need exclamation marks to cut deep. Don't come this year. You embarrassed the family. We need space. Just like that. No explanation. No kindness softening the blow. Just an execution sentence, dropped in my inbox before my first sip of coffee. I stared at the screen for a long moment, the words swimming into focus like they needed time to fully sink in. Embarrassed the family. My chest tightened. I tried to figure out what it even meant this time. Was it when I spoke up at Thanksgiving about my brother's joke that crossed a line? Was it when I skipped a Sunday dinner because I had a deadline? Was it the time I told my mother I didn't want to host this year, after hosting for 5 years straight, because I was tired? I could have guessed a dozen reasons. I could have written a whole list of ways I had embarrassed them without even trying. That was the thing about my mother. The rules changed every day, but the verdict was always the same: I was the problem. I put the phone down on the counter and stared out the window. Snow had been falling all night, blanketing the street in a soft white hush. It should have been peaceful. But inside me, something cracked. Because for years, I had been the glue. I was the one who planned the menus, wrapped the gifts no one else thought about, remembered which cousin liked which cookies, smoothed over the arguments when Dad got too quiet and Mom got too sharp. I did it all without asking for recognition. Without asking for thanks. And now, in one text, I was dismissed. Don't come. I imagined the table without me. Who would carve the roast? Who would keep Uncle Paul from snapping at my brother? Who would stop Mom from throwing that look, the one that turned the whole room cold, when someone said the wrong thing? I wasn't the loud one. I wasn't the favorite. I wasn't even the one who made the jokes or told the stories. But I was the balance. The quiet hand keeping the threads from unraveling. I didn't text back. I didn't beg, didn't apologize, didn't try to guess which sin had finally tipped the scales. I just stood there in my kitchen, holding my phone, and felt the strangest thing. Not just hurt. Not just anger. But something else. Something like relief. Because if she thought she could ban me and keep everything the same, she was about to learn what really held this family together. And it wasn't her. The first day after her message, I expected to cry. I thought I'd sit in my kitchen with a cup of tea gone cold, tears streaking down my face as I replayed her words over and over. Don't come. You embarrassed the family. But the tears never came. Instead, there was this strange stillness. I sat on the couch with the lights off, the tree I'd half-decorated blinking quietly in the corner. The ornaments looked wrong, like they belonged to someone else's holiday. My phone sat on the coffee table, face down, as if I couldn't bear to look at it. Not because I was waiting for an apology. But because I knew I wouldn't get one. That's how it always was. My mother never said sorry. She didn't need to, not in her mind. She simply declared what was true and the rest of us adjusted. This time, though, I wasn't adjusting. I thought of all the Christmases before this one. The ones where I stayed up past midnight baking pies, just so there'd be an extra one in case someone stopped by. The ones where I wrapped presents for everyone, including hers, because she didn't have time for that kind of thing. The ones where I smoothed over the awkward pauses and the snide remarks, the ones where I played peacekeeper without even realizing I was doing it. I wasn't loud. I wasn't the favorite. But I was the one holding the invisible threads. And now, those threads were gone. The second day, the calls started, not to me, of course. I could see it all from the edges, like watching a fire start through a window. My brother texted the family group chat, "Who's cooking Christmas dinner now?" No one answered. a cousin asked about the seating arrangement. No one answered. The third day, someone finally called me, my younger sister. She sounded hesitant, her voice thin and careful. So, I guess you're not coming? I almost laughed. Mom banned me. Oh, she said, like she'd forgotten that part. Well, do you think you could just come anyway? Like, maybe she didn't mean it. I stayed silent long enough for her to hear the truth in it. She sighed. She's stressed. You know how she gets. I almost laughed again. Stressed. That was the word the family always used when my mother burned someone. She's stressed, as if stress made the cruelty softer. But the reality was this. For years, I had been making Christmas happen. And for the first time, I wasn't. By the fourth day, it was clear they were scrambling. My brother's wife burned the ham. The cousin who volunteered to decorate didn't know where half the boxes were stored. Someone forgot to buy wrapping paper, and suddenly there was an argument in the group chat about how gifts should look. Every tiny thing I had always done quietly, without anyone asking, without anyone thanking me, those things weren't getting done. And the holes were showing. I sat on my couch, watching the snow fall outside, my phone buzzing with messages I didn't open. Not because I wanted revenge. But because I wanted them to see. I wanted them to finally understand what my mother never had, that I wasn't embarrassing the family. I was holding it together. And without me, they were already starting to fall apart. By the fifth day, the cracks weren't cracks anymore, they were canyons. I didn't need to be there to see it. I could hear it in every strained voicemail, every message laced with desperation that they swore wasn't desperation. My brother called twice. Not to talk to me, not really, but to vent. I don't know why she banned you, but it's a mess here, he muttered. Mom and Aunt Lydia had a fight about who gets the oven. Dad just sat there and didn't say anything, like always. It's like no one knows what's happening. I listened, said nothing, and hung up when he trailed off. They didn't realize how much I had been doing until I wasn't doing it anymore. I wasn't just the one who cooked. I was the one who made the lists. Who knew which cousin liked the cranberry sauce chunky and which wanted it smooth? Who remembered that Dad hated glitter on gift wrap and that Mom always wanted the tree lights just so? Without me, they were unraveling. The first sign was the food. The text chain between my siblings turned into an argument over who was cooking what. My sister insisted she'd handle dessert, but then my brother's wife offered to do it instead, and suddenly it was a territory thing. By Christmas Eve, I got another call. This time from my cousin. I don't want to get in the middle, she started, which of course meant she was already in the middle, but your mom is losing it. She burned the potatoes. She snapped at everyone. Then she locked herself in the bedroom for an hour and no one knew where she went. I didn't laugh. But I wanted to. Not out of cruelty. But out of the bitter realization that the woman who banned me to save Christmas was the one setting it on fire. And I knew exactly why. Because for years, she had been the voice, but I had been the hands. She barked orders. I made them happen. She criticized the table settings. I fixed them. She complained about the menu. I quietly cooked extra dishes so there'd be no complaints later. She liked being the hostess, but she never really hosted. She commanded. And I executed. Now, there was no one to execute. And for the first time, everyone else was seeing the truth. Her idea of hosting didn't work without someone quietly holding the whole thing up. By the time Christmas Day arrived, the implosion was complete. The ham was burned, again. Aunt Lydia stormed out after a fight about who always has to do the heavy lifting. My sister cried in the bathroom because my mother snapped at her for using the wrong serving spoon. And my father, my quiet, tired father, just sat in his chair, rubbing his forehead like he was wondering how it had all come to this. Meanwhile, I was home. My own small tree twinkling softly. My own cup of cocoa warm in my hands. I didn't gloat. I didn't send a Merry Christmas text just to rub it in. I just sat there, watching snow fall through the window, knowing something they didn't want to admit. They hadn't just lost me for Christmas. They'd lost the person who made Christmas possible. And it was only a matter of time before they realized it, and called. Christmas morning arrived, and with it came the storm. I didn't need to be there to see it. The proof came in pieces, a voicemail from my brother, a text from my sister, and a photo from my cousin that showed the perfect Christmas table half set, one chair knocked slightly out of place like someone had left in a hurry. The collapse had been building for days, but now it was here. The first sign came in my sister's breathless call at 10 a.m. Mom's in one of her moods, she whispered, as if saying it quieter might make it less dangerous. She threw the rolls in the trash because they didn't rise enough, and now she's saying no one appreciates how much she does. It was almost funny. Because for years, I had been the one baking those rolls. I had been the one who made sure they came out perfect, just the way Mom liked them, just so she wouldn't have a reason to snap. But this year, she had no one to absorb her anger. She had to sit with it. The second sign came at noon. A voicemail from my brother. She's gone off on Aunt Lydia. Said she was lazy, said she never helps. Aunt Lydia started screaming back that Mom treats her like a servant. Dad's just sitting there staring at the TV. It's bad. Real bad. I could hear the shouting in the background as he hung up. I pictured the scene in my head, the kitchen smoky from another burned dish, the table half decorated, my mother standing in the center of it all like a queen whose crown was slipping. By 2 o'clock, another text came from my cousin, this time a photo of the ham. Or what was left of it. Charred black. Edges curling like paper left in a fire. The caption was one word. Help. But there was no help coming. Not from me. For years, they had leaned on me without even realizing it. Every dish that came out right, every gift that ended up wrapped perfectly, every moment that didn't erupt into chaos, that was my hand, quietly holding it together. Without me, there was no glue. Just cracks. And now, those cracks were wide enough for everything to fall through. By late afternoon, the stories trickled in like debris after a flood. Uncle Paul yelling that he wasn't staying in this house full of tension. My sister locking herself in the bathroom again after Mom hissed that she ruined the table with the wrong napkins. Dad leaving the room entirely, his coat half-zipped, standing on the porch in the snow because he couldn't stand being in his own house. And my mother calling everyone else ungrateful, her voice rising higher, sharper, until even the people who always took her side stopped defending her. By the time dinner was served, no one was speaking. Plates clattered. Forks scraped. No one dared toast. And I wasn't there to smooth it over. I wasn't there to refill the glasses and soften the mood, to make a joke at just the right moment, to quietly pull Mom aside and say, breathe. I was gone. And Christmas, without me, was gone too. The calls began the very next day. I knew they would. Christmas night ended in fragments, texts and voicemails spilling into my phone like broken pieces of glass. I didn't open them. Not yet. I sat on my couch with the tree lights glowing softly in the corner, letting the messages pile up like snow on the porch. The first call came from my sister. She didn't even say hello, just started talking fast. It was awful, she said, her voice low and urgent. Mom screamed at Lydia until she left, and then she yelled at me because I don't know how to fold napkins like an adult. Dad stayed on the porch for hours. The ham. I could almost hear her flinch through the phone. The ham turned into charcoal. I didn't say anything. She took that as permission to keep going. You should have been there, she said. None of this would have happened if you'd been there. I smiled faintly, not because it was funny, but because she didn't even realize what she'd just said. For years, I'd been the one who made sure nothing happened. I'd been the one who stopped the arguments before they exploded, who calmed Mom when she got sharp, who handled every small thing that no one else bothered to think about. Now they were thinking about it. Because now, without me, everything was breaking. The second call came from my brother. He didn't bother pretending to care how I was. "Look," he said, "Mom is freaking out. Lydia won't answer her calls. Dad barely spoke to her last night. You know how she gets. She's saying we ruined Christmas on purpose. You need to talk to her." "I need to?" I asked quietly. There was a pause. "Well, yeah," he said, like it was obvious. "You're the only one she listens to." I almost laughed. Because listening wasn't the same as hearing. Mom had always listened, nodded at my words, sighed, pretended to take them in, then carried on exactly the same. But now she couldn't carry on. Because for once, there was no one to smooth the edges. The third call came from Mom herself. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail instead. It started sharp, "You made this worse by not coming," but halfway through, her tone cracked. Her voice softened, almost pleading. "I shouldn't have said what I said," she muttered. Things just got tense. Tense. That was her word for the kind of venom that could ruin an entire room. I didn't call her back. Instead, I scrolled through the messages piling up. Cousins apologizing for not speaking up. My sister-in-law asking if she could come over, just to talk. Even Dad, who rarely texted anyone, sent one short line, "We missed you." They didn't miss me. Not really. They missed what I did for them. They missed the way I held the threads together so tightly they thought the fabric would stay whole without me. Now, with the fabric unraveling in their hands, they were looking for the weaver. And for the first time, I wasn't rushing in to fix it. I let the phone ring. I let the messages pile up. Because they needed to feel the weight of their words, especially hers. "Don't come. You embarrassed the family." Well. Now they were the ones embarrassed. And they were the ones calling me. I let the phone ring one more day. It wasn't out of spite. It wasn't revenge. It was silence, the kind they'd given me for years without ever calling it what it was. By the sixth day, the weight of those missed calls became a chorus. 27 messages. 15 voicemails. 7 texts from my mother alone, each one shifting tone, sharp, then pleading, then sharp again. I sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through them with a calmness that surprised even me. I didn't feel the ache I thought I would. I didn't feel the urge to drop everything and rush over to fix the mess. I felt steady. Finally steady. When I finally picked up the phone and answered, it wasn't my mother's voice on the other end. It was my father's. "Hi," he said, quiet, tentative. "Hi." There was a pause, long and heavy. Then he said the words no one else had managed, "We need you. Not Mom needs you. Not Christmas needs you. We." And in that one syllable, I heard all the fractures, every broken moment from that dinner table, every thread that snapped when I stayed home this year. I took a breath. "Do you?" I asked softly. He hesitated. "Yes." "No," I said, voice steady, calm, unshakable. "You need what I do for you. You need the food cooked right, the fights smoothed over, the decorations perfect. But me? You didn't want me there. Mom didn't want me there. She made that clear." He didn't argue. He couldn't. I imagined him sitting in his chair, staring at the floor, hearing truths he'd avoided for too long. "She banned me," I continued. "She told me I embarrassed the family." "But do you know what embarrassed the family, Dad? It wasn't me. It was what happened when I wasn't there." The silence stretched. He exhaled slowly. "You're right. It wasn't much, but it was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever heard from him." Later that evening, my mother called again. This time, I answered. Her voice was sharper, defensive. I don't know why you're acting like this. Christmas was a disaster. I almost smiled. Yes. I know. It wouldn't have been if you'd been there, she snapped. I didn't let her twist it. It wouldn't have been if you hadn't banned me. There was a pause. The kind where she wanted to spit another excuse, but for once, she didn't have one ready. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just spoke plainly. I was never embarrassing the family, Mom. I was holding it together. And this Christmas? That was what it looked like when I stopped. Her voice cracked then, just a little. Are you coming next year? She asked. I let the question sit. No, I said. Not unless things change. Not unless you change. Because I'm not coming back just to fix what you keep breaking. I hung up before she could reply. The silence that followed wasn't lonely. It was freedom. I stood by my own little tree, the lights glowing in the quiet room, and smiled. They thought they could ban me and the world would keep spinning the same. But 5 days later, the family had collapsed without me. And now they knew. I wasn't the problem. I was the foundation. And I'd finally stopped holding up a house that only stood if I stayed small.